I only noticed them through halfway the film. Was that a conscious decision or was that organic?
It was completely organic. I mean, I started out thinking, oh, it'd be so great to encapsulate some histories of Pueblo Revolt art. You know, Virgil Ortiz, there's millions of great artists working on that theme. So, but it just developed completely organically that this protest started to bubble up. And I've also shot footage, just not in this film, but we shot footage of the 8 arrests this year. The men started the protests in the 70s. A man who I interviewed who then had a traumatic recollection of it asked me not to screen it, so I did. But he protested the script back in the 60s. He came back from Vietnam. He said, "This is bullcrap. I'm not going to read this. We didn't wear rosary beads and say, hey, welcome back. We didn't have any rosary beads. You know, this is not true." Well, he was drummed out of Santa Fe, pretty much, and then a group of tribal leaders in the 70s came down to the plaza. It wasn't recorded in any newscast, or nobody cared, nobody wrote about it. But in the 70s, these men from the tribes came and stood around and tried a reenactment and said, silent protest, we don't like this. Didn't get any mention. So I think there's so much, that just built up over time, and finally, like in Salt of the Earth,
right.
The women had to pick up the picket signs and say, we'll do it because the men are getting arrested. We'll do it. That's what happened.
Does this give you hope? I mean, you saw these voices. I'm noticing these voices. We just a few days ago nominated our first openly transgender person for an elected office in Vermont, right? We're seeing women step up across the country, getting nominated for positions. Possibly, Nevada could possibly become the first state house in the country with majority women, right? LGBT voices are coming out. No, they're no longer on the margins. Does that give you hope, even though you experience physical pain?
Of course, there's always hope because, we have silent witnesses that give us courage. There's people that are watching this. And there's always people advocating for us. So otherwise, we as Indian people need to just not be afraid and speak up. We need to speak up against the violence. We need to speak up against the trafficking. We need to just say no. Leave us alone.
I would love to know how you felt about this film and how you felt about that.
Oh, I loved this film.
To be clear,
Yeah.
that just no offense to anybody, but for Latinos who are not from New Mexico, we tend to make fun of Latinos from New Mexico. We always have. So just put that out. So when we hear stuff about the Entrada and someone from Northern Mexico, I'm from Spanish. We used to, us from Texas and California, we're like, so just want to put don't get me started, man. And in reaction to that film, Ricardo, I was curious about why you guys decided to use reenacting actors. I know everything they said was either written down or from interviews.
Correct.
But why that strategy? I always, I saw it and I would forget these were actors. I initially would think that these were the players. Why that strategy?
I just put it there. We wanted to attract the youth.
To attract what?
The youth. If we would, a majority of the, as he said, all the dialogue that was used in the documentary was actual dialogue. It was either taken from the 2 novels, 2 books that Oscar wrote, or from all the interviews we took. So the whole script was written, and there's kudos to David Ventura and to Philip as well, who both wrote the script on this. But we wanted to attract the youth, because if we would have just simply interviewed all the older generation at that time, my age, because I was a veteran. And so just been a bunch of old folks there talking about, I remember Oscar, yeah, crazy Bato, man, yeah. And to a degree, maybe been just preaching to the choir a little bit. And we would have lost that younger audience. and the significance and the importance of Oscar Acosta is the fact that we are in times now, as we're talking about Trumpism, we're talking about everything that's going on in this world today, that it's important that the younger audience becomes aware of this great intellectual. You know, he was crazy, but he was crazy smart. And so why we use young voices to interpret the wonderful dialogue in the interviews was a very conscious decision. And the fact is, but the powers to be, and we thank him as well too, is well, I won't be afraid to say, how do we say, public broadcasting, okay? When they saw what we were trying to do, there was pushback, quite a bit of pushback, mainly because of the audience or the people that support a certain, entity. But we were determined, Philip Rodriguez, myself, the writer, and Allison Sotomayor, and most importantly, it's Claudio Rocha, who was a cinematographer who did all the creative geniuses of film. We sat, this is an interesting process that people do film, and I can attest to that, is that you sit there at a table, and you're just talking ideas, but you have a vision in mind. We're going to tell a story about this individual. How are we going to tell it? Are we going to tell it in the ongoing genre, which already been how they portray these documentaries? This is this is that. Or are we going to take the chance? And these were conscious discussions. And finally, I'll never forget the day we were sitting at the table, the four of us, and we just all looked at each other and we said, F it. We're going to do a story that needs to be told the way Oscar would want it told. Oscar would want it told todo madre. We're going to tell you, yeah, I'm crazy, I got loaded, but look what I did. Look what I did. I had identity problems. I had psychological problems. How many Mexicans at that time would go see a shrink? Very few.
We don't see him today. What are you talking about?
So somos todos macho.
Yeah. You don't need it.
Oscar went. So it was so important. So it was a conscious decision on how we wanted to tell the story, because if we told the story with the youth in mind, the creative genius of Claudio Rocha, the vision of the core group of Philip, myself, and David, Allison, absolutely. We needed, most important, a woman's voice. Allison, one of the best producers, I'll always work with Allison. Always. So this input of this conscious, creative decision was the youth. Because we're old. We're gone, to a degree. All we can do, as they always say, is we're elders.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, I'm getting too caught up. Okay.
You're as you saw the story unfold, and you saw women's voices, right? What was your reaction to that? But also, we're relatively young, right? And we always hear that our elders saying either I'm too old or this, and that we still put them on a pedestal. We still honor them. What did you take from not only just the women, but also with the elders as you saw this project unfold?
Well, I think it's very important, and my grandfather always says that storytelling and our stories are one generation away from extinction.
And who's your grandfather?
And Scott Mammoth.
I thought so. He was really good. He's a novelist, by the way. Great.
And so I think it is really important to keep that story going somehow, and to not drop it, and not forget, and to always talk about it, and always carry that conversation and pass it on to the younger generation. And in regards to women's voices, I think that's also very important, but I just think that we are all people, and
embraces your work, and they celebrate it, they take it and react to it, you feel sometimes proud, and you feel somewhat apprehensive that we're taking it and what's the word? Appropriate, right? Appropriate. Or do you feel that no, that's what I'm giving it to you. I want you to take it.
Well, like I said, I think that no matter what, it will be interpreted in a different way by different people. And the important thing is that I won't try to accommodate anybody or everybody ever. And I write just for me and for my family and telling my story. And I'm happy when someone listens no matter what. And I don't, no offense, but I don't really care.
That's the way it should be.
I'd like to add something to what you said, and that is her grandfather. He said, you have to tell the stories. That's actually the responsibility of the elders, is to tell the story. And I may be I was getting carried away there, but I do believe in that strongly, that as a filmmaker, we tell the stories. We tell the stories of Oscar from the past. And that's our job, to tell the story. And how we tell that story is how it's going to continue on. How are the young people going to digest it and think, okay, now I got it. But what I wanted to say real quick was, I had the privilege of meeting Jorge Gonzalez, the leader of the Crusade for Justice in Denver, just before he passed away. I did a film years ago, very controversial film called Latino, which was about the Contra War in Nicaragua. I did the film with Haskell Wexler. We went to Denver to screen the film years and years ago, and Corky wanted to meet me. And what he told me when I went to his home, we brought him to his house, and he was laying down, and he called me over very close. He said, "Come here, get up like this." So I got real close to him, and he brought me real close, and he says, "You and your generation have to tell stories because it's still first person. When you die, in your generation, it becomes second person. And very few people listen or believe to second-hand stories. But when it comes from first person, you witnessed it. You saw the war in Nicaragua. It just stayed with me. The simple words he says, first person. You tell the stories, and they will listen. You don't time never forgot. Never. And I think it's so important when we talk about elders.
Sure.
I just wanted to say one thing, going back to the question about the use of reenactors or dramatizations of these videos, is not knowing the production of the documentary. When I saw it, because when I teach Acosta's work, right, it falls into that weird distinction. Is it autobiography? Is it a novel? Right? For example, Rubén Salazar is not mentioned. It's Zaldivar, right?
Yes.
So there are characters that he changes their names. So it always plays with this weird sort of genre distinction.
Did he read Cesar Chavez?
Exactly. Did Cesar Chavez really tell him, dude, you got to be a lawyer, right? We don't know. But so this is what I really liked about the dramatization, because it also sort of played with that idea of documentary. Is it a story? Is it real? Right? And I think for me that was one of the really fantastic additions that you did in the film, is to tell the story in a way where it blends genres, just like Acosta did.
And one question more for you before we want to take it to the audience with some questions. In his books and in this, he makes very clear that he's indigenous. Right? He is an indigenous person. He has that body. And this is an important distinction, especially here in Santa Fe, when we're talking about Latinos. He hits you over the head in the book. Why is that important for this person during the movement to say, hey, wait a minute, don't forget forget, this is who we are.
Because I don't want to go too deeply into it, but one of the things that
We will later.
yeah, we will later. But one of the things that struck me about watching both movies, both films, was I kept thinking about Gloria Anzaldua's poem, "When you live in the borderlands means you," where she starts off by saying, "When you live in the borderlands means you are neither gabacha, India, mestiza, negra. You are all of them, all of these." And I think that when we look at Anzaldua's very important work in regards to the construction of the new mestiza in the 1980s, she is also drawing upon a longer history that's been played out, but not as maybe not as strongly as she does. But I'm thinking Ricardo Sanchez in his book of poetry, Intelequia, where he also proposes the Chicano soul as being divided within what he calls an entelequia. Or Acosta trying to figure out, who am I? Am I Mexican? Am I American? Am I Native American? And at that point, right, I am all of them. I am Chicano. Right? So I think that for me is also really key. But it is one of those elements that I find that ties both films well.
Before we go, I did want to ask a few questions. Yes.
I came down from Alaska in 1969 to fight forest fires. And it wasn't until this last year that I heard that the word Chicano, which I thought was a East LA, mix it up kind of word, was an Aztec word. I thought it was a play on Mexicano, but that it actually had its roots in the Aztec language, which was fascinating for me. And that the word vato was a Pima Indian word for someone who hangs out in the shade under the ramada.
Right.
I mean, that was mind blowing.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of interpretations of where the word Chicano came from. As I think that it's an Aztec word. Because remember, they weren't Aztecs, right? They were Mexica.
Yeah, Mexica. Right.
And so it came from Mexicano.
Yeah.
And so and this is what we see in fact, when I often introduce myself or give presentations, I point out that I spell Chicano with an X, which is an older way of spelling the term that we saw in the early movement. There was a revista called the Revista Chicana Pequeña, which was with the uses of the X. Ana Castillo uses Chicanisma, right, with an X. Right, so the X is one is a form of crossing out, right? But the other is sort of this reference to this older Mexicano spelling. There's a number of words. I grew up being called a pocho, which is a very negative, derogatory term used by Mexicans towards Mexican Americans. That we are, because we were born in the U.S. and we don't speak Spanish very well. That we have been cut off from our roots, and this is something that I used to be called in Baja California, where my family is from. And now when I go down to Mexico to give presentations, I often introduce myself first as, "Well, I'm a pocho." So what? Right? And then we start talking about the way these terms work. So much, yes.
And do I understand you're the director of the second?
Of the Belt Lightning, and he's the producer of Brown Buffalo.
So I just wanted to say, I can't wait to send it to my sisters in Europe, activist sisters in Europe. It's one of the most brilliantly understated, super feminist films that I've ever seen. It's just like, wow. And there was a stylistic thing inside of there, which was very striking for me, where the segues between different sections would just kind of come to a crushing halt. And then there'd be this dead silence, and then the next scene would pick up again. What's that about?
Well, it's so great that you're ascribing like these artistic motives to what was actually guerrilla filmmaking. Zero budget. Like I had smash cuts. I mean, sometimes we were out in the woods somewhere, and oh my God, there's so and so. Can you please sit for an interview? My Rode mic is low on battery. Somebody use my internal mic, and please, the wind, please stop.
Well, I wondered. I said, do they not have it together here, or no budget, or what?
It's zero budget, 300 hours.
But it works.
Thank you.
It really
So
works.
We tried that artistic stuff. You're kind of blonde on my DVD cover.
Any other questions? I do want to say, we were talking about Chicano, folks usually ask, what nation are you? And my response is, well, we were probably one of the tribes that got beat up by the Aztecs. When I mentioned that, when I'm in a native setting, they would say, oh, that just means you're Crow, don't worry about it. And then, of course, I told my friend that, colleague, who happens to be Crow, and she got really pissed off. She says, no, that means you're Lakota. Oh, that's it. I do want to give our panelists a warm round of applause. Our organizer of the Film Fest,
Yes.
please. And to all those in the projects and all the activists who make it work, please give them a round of applause. Continues.
So tomorrow night we are sold out for A Woman Walks Ahead, and which I'm really excited about. And but tomorrow at 3, we at the Santa Fe Indian Center we're screening Doctrine of Discovery with Oren Lyons, faith keeper from the Iroquois Nation, who's also on our board of directors. Stephen Newcomb, who's the producer of Doctrine of Discovery. Sheldon Wolfchild, who's the director of Doctrine of Discovery. The mayor will be there to welcome us in. We've invited all the 19 governors to talk about this Doctrine of Discovery. And it's suggested donations, so run and tell your friends and your family. This is a very unique conversation that's going to happen tomorrow on screen. Very special, very spiritual and provocative. So
But the conversation with the filmmakers at a different location at the same time as the film, is that right?
So tomorrow at 3 at the Santa Fe Indian Center, we're
Doing the screening.
is an hour, and then we're going to have an hour and a half of dialogue with these incredible filmmakers. And we're going to talk about the Doctrine of Discovery. I mean, all these films and all these, priests that are being arrested and being held accountable, and the Pope not doing anything, and the Archbishop here maybe not doing anything, maybe he is doing something, maybe he might do something. I mean, we're calling attention now to have accountability for what's happened here on this earth to us, our native peoples. And it's time that there be accountability. And there's time for this conversation to happen in a safe place. And it's going to be gorgeous. And by the way, with all of us, with our mixed blood and running through our veins, at the end of the day, they would like to say that we don't have the numbers. At the end of the day, they would like to say Native peoples don't have the numbers. At the end of the day, they would say, Mexicans don't have the numbers.
What does that mean?
At the end of the day, they mean Latino. The networks, the media, all of it. But at the end of the day, we do have the numbers. And at the end of the day, this is still in the